Okay, well, the good news is now we've got audio. It's a good thing. Let me get a little background music going here. Good news is I've got the audio fixed. Um, Once I shut this video down, I didn't think I was going to come back and try to remake it, but after some more time on Facebook tonight, I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and remake this and talk about this. Maybe I'll just keep it a little bit shorter than what I had previously. But what does a resurrected life look like? Can I prove that Jesus Christ was resurrected from the dead? I got asked that the other night on Facebook from a friend of mine, and it was a real stumper for me. I really had to think about that one. No, I can't, was my immediate response. I cannot physically prove that Jesus Christ was resurrected from the dead, that was raised from the dead. Before I started looking into that, before I answered that, I wanted to go and look up what the definition of resurrected meant, what it was. According to Wikipedia, resurrection talks about bringing what's dead back to life. In human sense, it's bringing somebody back from being dead, literally brain dead, heart dead, gone, and you bring them back to life. That's being resurrected. But the same can also be said for bringing a vehicle back to life. Like a neighbor of mine was showing me a 1975, 1977 Honda motorcycle that was given to him by a friend, and he took it apart, cleaned the carburetor out real well, and brought this motorcycle back to life. He resurrected this motorcycle. So resurrection is taking something that was dead and bringing it back to life. And although I can't prove that Jesus Christ was raised from the dead, was resurrected, and is now alive physically, taking you directly to Jesus to introduce you to Jesus, I can't do that. But what I can do is prove to you that Jesus Christ has been resurrected in me. He's been resurrected in me. He's been resurrected in the men that I meet with, the stone cold killers, the ex-cons, the ex-felons, the men that I meet with on Thursday nights, the men I've been meeting with on Thursday nights for the last 12 years. My brothers, my band of brothers. Jesus Christ has been resurrected in them. There's been a lifestyle change. And yeah, people can talk about the fact that they've got faith and they believe in God. Well, that's only going to get you so far. And if you apply that to anything in life, anything at all, it's you approach a man who's standing beside a pond and he's fully clothed and he's gasping for air, and you ask him, what's going on, bub? He says, I almost drowned. Really? You're dry. You just came out of the water? He says, yeah, I just pulled myself up out of the water. I almost drowned. Well, how'd that happen? Because you're dry. You're completely dry. Your hair's dry. You're dry. And he stands there a minute and he says, well, I believe I almost drowned. I have faith I almost drowned. But there's something wrong with that picture. The proof's in the pudding is about what that amounts to. And people can fake it. People are good at faking it. A con artist can spot a con a mile away. They really can. You can con some of the people some of the time, but you're not going to con everybody. You know, people are good at faking it, and I don't buy it. I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. You know, there are some telltale signs of what to look for and what to find in the life of someone who's been resurrected, someone who's been brought back to life. The number one thing that I think I see the most of is right here in the eyes. I've looked into the eyes of stone cold killers, and they're black. They're black as night. And I dare not look into them for very long. Okay. But whereas I saw those men when I first met them, because a lot of them still come to our Thursday night Bible studies. Now their eyes are full of life. Their eyes are full of peace. They're full of hope. They're full of tranquility. They're full of love. It's in their eyes is the number one place that I see it. But you've got to understand that whole process, it starts from the inside and works its way out. It's not something that you can wear on the outside. It's not a Jesus t-shirt you can put on. It's not a Jesus baseball cap you can put on and keep acting the way that you've acted in the past. It doesn't work like that. There's got to be a change. There's got to be a metamorphosis. There's got to be a catalyst, a spark, an ignition. There's got to be. Or else it just doesn't work. And I realize more than anyone that church buildings are full of people who have never made that transition. They fake it. In my opinion, they fake it. There's just no life there. It's like a group of people standing around a fire pit in the wintertime, acting like they're getting warm. Maybe they're holding marshmallows over that fire pit. Maybe they're holding hot dogs over the fire pit, and they're all joking and coking and laughing, having a good time. They're acting like there's a fire in the fire pit. But it's pitch dark out. It's pitch dark and there's no warmth. There's no fire in the fire pit. And there's a lot of church buildings the same way. People put on their Sunday best, their fine clothes, their fine hairdos, makeup, bling, okay, sing some songs, stand up, say some prayers, be reverent, listen to a sermon from an educated preacher, an educated sermon from an educated preacher. Okay. Do some glad handing. Leave and come back again the next week. But there's no fire. There's absolutely no fire in the fire pit. No fire in the fireplace. Okay? And that's what I'm talking about. There's got to be change. For instance, the book of John. Okay? Jesus has a discussion with one of the lead Pharisees, a man called Nicodemus. Jesus tells Nicodemus that unless a man be born again, he cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. He has to be born again. There has to be that life resurrected. Has to be. No question about it. You can't fake it. Sorry. You can't fake it. You may be able to fool people. You may be able to fool the pastor. You may be able to fool most of your friends, family, and neighbors. But I guarantee you're not going to fool God. That ain't happening. And that's what matters the most. And it's not an act. It's not something you can act out. It's just something that's happened to you. You've realized. You've come to know Jesus Christ. You've come to meet him personally. And that's, in my opinion, that's what it's all about. That's what it's got to be about. All day, all night, every day, every night. That's what it's got to be about. Okay? So, I made a list. I would be amiss if I didn't provide some kind of a list with what a person can do, what a non-believer can do to make that transition, to get right with God. The first big step that a person can take is if that person holds any unforgiveness in their heart, you've got to let that go. That's like, well, it's like over here behind me, being out at sea, okay? And you're carrying this giant boulder, and you can only tread water for so long. Sooner or later, if you don't drop that boulder, man, you're going to go under with that boulder. You're going down with the boulder. And for what? For unforgiveness, for hatred, for a grudge you're holding against somebody, somewhere. Being angry at somebody is like drinking poison and wishing for that person to die. I didn't know if you knew that or not. But if you hold anybody in unforgiveness, number one thing is you've got to let that go. Got to let it go. That's number one. Number two thing you can do. And if you've never done this before, it's an important step. Some people are going to say it's absolutely vital. It's absolutely vital for salvation. I don't believe that. I don't believe it's that necessary. Number two thing you can do is make a public proclamation that you understand that Jesus Christ died as the sacrificial lamb for all mankind's sins. He was buried, and on the third day, he rose. He conquered death. He conquered death for himself, and he conquered death for all mankind by being baptized. Okay. And then there's argument between submersion and sprinkling and baptism, but in this, it's been omitted from the NIV when James and John's mother asked Jesus if they could sit on his left and his right. Okay. Well, what Jesus originally asked the young men was, can you drink from the cup that I'm about to drink? And can you pass through the baptism that I'm about to pass through? The NIV conveniently leaves that little part out. Pass through the baptism I'm about to pass through. But what Jesus was referring to was the blood bath that he was getting ready to soak in. The whole torture process before he was put on the cross and killed that way. Okay, that's a baptism. Baptism can mean many things to many people, but the number one way that you can be baptized is make this proclamation to the public, make the proclamation to your friends and family, either by submersion or do it like the Catholics do it and be sprinkled over the head. Okay, but as long as there's a baptism of the heart, in my opinion, as long as there's a baptism of the heart, and God knows that you've been baptized and that you're admitting to God that you acknowledge that Jesus died and rose again, that's good enough for him. And I know in certain societies and other religions, if a person chooses to be baptized, that's a real good way to get kicked out of the house, to be ostracized, if not killed. In certain circles, you can be killed for being baptized, and that's the importance of baptism. But the thief on the cross, we don't know that he was baptized. We don't know that he led any kind of a godly life at all. But, as he was dying, he said to Jesus, please remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus said, today you're going to be with me in paradise. Flat out. Okay. Being baptized. It's important. It's important for you, if nothing else. Okay. It's going to help you remember where you came from and the choice that you made at one point in time. I was baptized in the Blue River just outside of Milltown, Indiana when I was 12 years old. Yes, I've been baptized. I was baptized by submersion. But more so than that, my heart's been baptized since then, thoroughly baptized. So that's number 2. Number 1, drop unforgiveness boulder. Number 2, get baptized. What else can we do? Daily practicing of the spiritual fruits. And this is something you just need to get in the practice of doing all the time. Keep these things written down. Keep them handy so you constantly remember. It's a series of guideposts, actually, and I've got them written down right here. Here they are. According to the Apostle Paul in the book of Galatians, these are fruits of the Holy Spirit. These are going to become more prevalent in your walk. These traits are going to become more prevalent as you mature as a Christ follower. Love, gentleness, peace, patience, faithfulness, self-control, joy, goodness, and kindness. And these need to be exhibited every single day. You need to practice them every single day. I get the opportunity to practice every single day. And sometimes I'm not so good at them. You know, I'll admit, I don't glow in the dark. I'm just as much a carnal man sometimes as I was when I was walking in darkness. But thank God I don't have to stay there. Okay. And number 4, filling your life with godly things and godly people. Okay. Jesus talks about in the book of Matthew when an evil spirit leaves a man. Okay, and I'm going to go spiritual here because I've personally seen this happen. I saw this happen to a really good friend of mine. When an evil spirit leaves a man, he goes out into arid places. He's lonely. He's got nothing to do. He doesn't have a human host to live in. This is Jesus talking, so the spirit says, I know what I'll do. I'll return to the host from which I came. And Jesus says, when that evil spirit returns, he takes his whole posse with him. He brings the whole family with him. And when they show up to the host, they find the house, or the host, they find the house has been swept clean and is sitting vacant. Plenty of room for him to go right back inside. And Jesus says that man's condition is exponentially worse than it was before, because that host, that man, did not refill his house with blessed furniture, with blessed friends, with blessed practices, with blessed things. He didn't fill it back up. Okay. And I watched that happen to a really good friend of mine. And last I checked on him, he was on wife number 4. He's had umpteen million jobs. The guy's, he's a train wreck. He's a mess. I watched him. I watched him accept Jesus. I watched him get tired of his lifestyle. And I watched him accept Jesus. And I watched him blow it all away. Anyway, that was number 4. Number 5, real quickly, and I'll wrap this up. But it kind of ties in with number 4, and it's cutting baggage, cutting dead weight, cutting weight that's pulling you back. And I say this again, like, we're all, here, where am I? Right here in the ocean. Say we're all floating at sea. Okay, we're all bobbing up and down in the sea. Some of us are going under, some of us come back up, gasp for air, some of us go under for good and never come back up. Some of us are eaten by sharks, some of us are stung by stingrays, jellyfish, whatever. Okay, but we're torn up pretty bad. Then along comes this raft. And I climb up onto this raft, and all of a sudden I'm saved. And that's, we'll just call that meeting Jesus. I'm saved. Okay? The people I'm out there with, rafts float by these people, and they don't climb aboard. They don't want anything to do with that raft. But they see me on my raft, and they come over and they grab a hold of my raft. And they think they want to climb on board my raft. Well, that doesn't cut it. And it's one thing my buddy did. Okay, the buddy I was just talking about. He tried to climb back onto my raft. And all of a sudden, my raft started capsizing. And I started sinking. I started going back into the sea, going back into old habits that I buried that guy. Okay? And that man was being resurrected. And I didn't like it. So I had to cut the rope. Cut him off. See ya. Sorry about it. You know, you got to cut him loose. You can't pull a man out of quicksand if you're not standing on solid ground yourself. It's stupid. It's suicide to jump into quicksand and try to save a man in quicksand. And a man that's already in quicksand isn't going to save the man that's in quicksand. That ain't happening, you know. Number 6, just to make sure that you're doing these things correctly, is the book of 1 John. The book of 1 John. Guideposts aren't out obvious, but the book of 1 John is a real short book to read. 1 John can provide some guideposts for you on how a Christian should be living his or her life. The book of 1 John. Read it. Become acquainted with it. Get familiar with it. Read it more than once. Read it often. Read it several times. Commit it to memory if you can. But it provides some guideposts. So between the fruits of the Spirit, the fruits of the Holy Spirit that I showed you here, and then guideposts listed in the book of 1 John, those are some ideas, some concepts to live by. But first and foremost, it's got to happen in here first. You know, it's kind of like you take over a garage. You buy a garage, okay? And say in the concrete, in the cylinder block walls, you've got some major oil stains in the walls. You paint over them with latex, you paint over them, you paint over them, you paint over them, and that oil stain keeps bleeding through. And it's going to bleed through every time. Kilz, K-I-L-Z, isn't going to cover up that stain. You have to actually go into the wall and tear that part of the wall out that's stained with that oil stain. You've got to completely remove that from the wall. Then go back in with new material into the wall. Then you can paint it and the oil stain's not going to come through. But trying to paint over your bad self doesn't work. It ain't going to work. Doesn't happen. Okay? If you're going to be bad, be bad. Be super bad. But don't try to fake being good. Because most of the people who've changed, who've been resurrected, they see right through that crap. Right through it. That's the way it is. So, what does a resurrected life look like? That's completely up to you. I know what my life looks like. And I know what the lives of my brothers look like. And I would love to get some of these guys on testimony, get their testimonies on video. Chris Smith, My friend Chris Smith, on the street, he was known at one point in time as Crystal Meth. Okay, he was a meth dealer in downtown Indianapolis area. He stepped in front of a gunman to protect his family last Christmas, and Chris isn't with us anymore. You know, he left a testimony. He allowed me to get a video testimony of his life, and I've got that in my my Facebook, or I'm sorry, my YouTube channel. I've got that on my YouTube channel. And just before his funeral, uh, that particular video was watched something like 14,000 times. It was unreal. It went viral, and a lot of people got to learn how Jesus Christ had been resurrected in Chris's life. And people were able to see all the good that Chris did, not from the outside, but it was an inside out metamorphosis, is what it was. You know, a caterpillar can put butterfly wings on and try to look like a butterfly. But until the caterpillar gets inside that cocoon and goes through whatever metamorphosis it goes through, and then fights its way out of that cocoon and experiences freedom in flight as a butterfly, until that happens, he's still just a caterpillar with butterfly wings. It doesn't happen. So, with that being said, thank you for watching the video. I really hope that I've got this video software figured out. I like it. I can do a lot more with it. But yeah, thanks for watching, and leave your comments. Just appreciate your comments. Thank you.